Hello, I'm going to talk to you about meeting one of my heroes from childhood and about attending a conference. And if you like Queen, you better stay tuned. If you've got any interest in science or space, then you better stay tuned. And if you like visual art and you want to see a drawing that I've just done, then you better stay tuned. Anyway, here goes. It's a lot of fun. So on Friday, I attended Astrofest, which is a conference which happened in Kensington, London at the Town Hall. And the only reason I found out about this was because I follow Brian May on Instagram, and you probably know by now I really do adore the rock band Queen. So I followed his link and I decided that as I was coming to London anyway, I was definitely going to go to the Astrofest, because he was going to talk about stereoscopic photographs and particularly about stereoscopic photographs and space. And there was an exciting lecture coming up, and I thought, even me, who, okay, I have an A-level in science, but it's not physics or anything like that, and I'm an artist, so I'm interested in visual things, I thought, with a bit of luck, I might just about be able to follow what's going on. As it was, they made it absolutely brilliant. They made it so that it was completely accessible to the general public, and yet it was also of interest to very high-level scientists, some of whom were kind enough to come and introduce themselves to me. I mean, just amazing people that had flown from halfway across the world to attend the conference and are really, really known in the field. And yeah, great experience. I want to show you the book that I bought. I'm just going to grab that. Here we are. So it's called Islands in Infinity, Galaxies 3D. And as you can see, Brian's name is on the front and his co-authors are also listed. So when they took to the stage for this part of the afternoon, I was only able to attend the afternoon because I'd flown in from Jersey, which took most of the morning. We had a lecture, first of all, from a wonderful female scientist from Berkeley, USA. And she was talking about really mind-blowing scientific things. Then we had a really interesting interlude where we had a male scientist talking about the unluckiest astronomer in the world and about how things went wrong. And I think that's quite an important thing to think about in science, that success is not always guaranteed. And sometimes with things that don't go according to plan, discoveries can be made along the way. And he did this in a really humorous kind of way, which I think was absolutely brilliant for people who've been there all day long at the conference and were possibly getting into the typical kind of slight afternoon slump, you know, the sort of thing mid-afternoon. And I just think that that was absolutely genius that they did that. Then there was a short break and we were told that we would all need to wear very special glasses. So we had to go to the door and be given very special glasses. They were much more elaborate than those ones you might have seen at the cinema when you go to see 3D films. These were really very sturdy, they didn't bend. You could put them on over ordinary glasses. So if you were someone who needed to wear glasses for distance seeing to see screens and things like that, you could be included. I don't need those, but anyway, I put on my my 3D glasses, and at first I wondered, I wonder what's happening with this. And then we saw pictures like this really coming to life. Now, the difficult thing is that I can't actually show you those pictures, because if I were to take a photograph of them, you wouldn't actually be able to see the effect. In fact, one of the scientists did say to me afterwards, when I explained this and said I would like to put a little bit on the YouTube, he said you could have maybe tried taking the photograph through the glasses, through one lens of the glasses. But of course I didn't know about that in time. I'm very new to this. I've got a lot of Brian's books on this subject and I'm very interested in stereoscopic photographs. It was through seeing Brian's collection, which had been known to Tate Britain quite a few years ago, that I first became aware of some of his extensive collection. But this is a book which he has worked on with two others, one of whom is a scientist in the strict sense of being a scientist. Brian, in my opinion, is like the modern day Renaissance man because he's interested in many, many things, and astrophysics is just one of his portfolio of things that he's particularly interested in. And then this man at the bottom, JP, who I found really, really interesting because he's a photographer, but a photographer with an interest in making the photographs artistic and applying science to the art. And he was doing things like separating out the levels of stars so that we'd be able to see through the galaxy. I mean, that in itself as a sentence is pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? So I would suggest tracking down this book if it's something that you're interested in. I'll just briefly show you the back cover so that if you want to perhaps slow the screen down and take a little look, you'll get some idea of what it's about. Because, I mean, I've only just bought the book, so it's a little bit above me. And because I was there, I was able to get a little card which goes in the book, which is signed by the 3 authors. As it was, I could have opened up the book and had the book signed by Brian later on, but I wasn't to know that. And I want to share something for the people who are particularly Queen fans. What happened was when we had to go back in, so we had to go out of the door to go back into the door to get the special 3D glasses. And as I was going out of the door to get my special 3D glasses, who was coming through the door but Brian May? And I thought, it's now or never. This is my moment when I meet Brian May. So I stuck out my hand and I said, Brian, I'm pleased to meet you at long last. And he stuck out his hand and shook hands with me and smiled. But obviously he was being shown through to go and do his presentation and I need to go and get my glasses. So I thought that was going to be it. I thought, that's my moment. I've met Brian May as I'm going through the door. But there was more to come. I'm just going to show those of you who are interested in art a little artistic interlude here. Now this is a little drawing that I did under the direction of Mary McIntyre, who was presenting Lunar Art on the top floor. And basically she's got photographs which she has taken of the moon, and they're all black and white photographs, and she encourages people to use chalk pastels and pastels to make lunar images. And this is my first one. I did it in about 20 minutes, so it's, you know, just a little tryout. But her and I got chatting, and I think it's something that at some point I might want to pursue a little more. I suggested to her that because this is a very fugitive material, i.e. it smudges, I'm just going to show you, look. I grabbed another piece of paper to try and protect it, and you can see all the smudging which has happened just simply by putting that on top to protect it. So it's not going to travel well, it's not going to frame well. And I spoke to her about fixatives which you can use, and she said she hadn't found one yet which works on the black paper that doesn't actually spoil the effect. So she was having to accept the fact that it was fugitive. But I think that probably I would do this using oil paint. So black oil paint, white oil paint, and use the two together to make the different tones. And I think it's something that I will have a little play around with, and I may, as I have suggested to her, get in touch and show her the results and see where that goes, because it's not something that she's doing yet, but I think it could be something that would be worthwhile doing. It might even be something that, you know, just thinking off the top of my head, I could even do on here as a little kind of demonstration video of another art technique if anyone would be interested. It's certainly a very good discipline to do with tonal values in art, even if you're not specifically interested in lunar art or interested in space in general. But anyway, I'm just going to put that one down. So that was my first little effort. So now for those of you who are Queen fans, we come to the moment. So at the end of the lecture on 3D islands in infinity and galaxies in 3D, Brian and his 2 co-authors took to the bar stools on the stage, and there was an open mic question and answer session. I didn't ask anything because a lot of the questions were quite high level science ones, and the one I really wanted to ask was something about art, and I just didn't think it was probably the right audience. I think I'd probably rather message somebody privately and ask a question about that and see where that might go. And so I thought, maybe at the end, if we can just walk down to the front, there might be a chance of just literally, you know, seeing Brian again. Little did I know we were going to actually have a queue, and Brian was going to very generously sign things for people. So I was very ill prepared. I hadn't gone with any Queen albums or anything like that. Didn't think that that was the kind of thing I was going to be able to do at an Astro conference. So I queued up and I met Brian and I had a conversation. And the conversation was probably the most important thing. The fact that I've at long last had a conversation with Brian and he's told me some stuff which is really very special to me and very exciting, and perhaps later on in the year I might be able to tell you a little bit more about that, because the time is not quite right yet to do that. I don't like to spoil other people's thunder, but it was fun. It was fun and it's exciting and it's put a big smile on my face, and I'm going to go away and I'm going to look at these stereoscopic photographs and be a bit more inspired perhaps in my art in due course about it. And I maybe will see some of you at some wonderful rock concert somewhere. If you would like to keep in touch with this channel, please like, subscribe, and if you feel that you would like to leave a comment, I do read them all, and hopefully see you again soon.